Mabuhay! Earn Kapampangan, Luwid kayo! Welcome back to another video. It's me, Kirby Araullo, your friendly Pinoy historian and culture bearer. So if you like learning about our people's history, our people's culture, and everything in between, don't forget to like, share this video, comment down below, and please subscribe. And today's video is yet another raw vlog. So if you're new to my channel, raw vlogs in this channel, raw videos in this channels are usually the videos where I share my knowledge, I share what I know from the top of my head, meaning it's unscripted, almost usually no notes. Although today I did have some notes. I wrote down I listed, not necessarily notes, but I listed a bullet point list of the creatures and the mythological beings that were shown on the first episode of Trese. And since many of you requested for me to do a review and a breakdown for each of the Trese episodes from Season 1, here's the first video in a series of overviews and breakdowns of the mythologies, the folklore, and other cultural elements in the animated series Trese, which again is based on the comic book series or graphic novel series created by Budjette Tan and Kajo Baldisimo. But do not worry, I will try my best not to give out any spoilers. I'll try my best not to give away the plot in the whole season 1 of Trese. Unless, of course, if you read the books, then you already know what happened. But yeah, today we'll focus more on the mythologies and the folklores and other cultural themes that are presented in each episode. Or today actually is about episode 1, and then the next ones, of course, is episode 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So yes, today is all about episode 1. Kaya naman, if you actually haven't seen Trese yet, I highly encourage you, I urge you to watch Trese on Netflix. You can watch the entire season 1 before you watch this video, or even after you watch this video. Actually, since you're already here, maybe after. And again, if you're new to my channel, I also made a Pinoy historian's review of the official trailer of Trese Season 1 and also a reaction to the first 5 minutes teaser of the first episode of Season 1. So if you have not seen those yet, check out the links up here or down below. And actually, the things that I already mentioned there, I probably won't mention in this video anymore. So please watch those 2 other videos where I also did a breakdown of the mythologies shown in the teaser and the trailer. So watch them if you haven't seen them yet. Actually, episode 1 pa lamang jam-pack na. So for today's video, I'll focus on some of the ones that were highlighted in this episode. And we'll save the other ones that also appear in the other episodes in the next videos. And again, I'm speaking from my perspective as a Filipino historian and a Kapampangan and Tagalog culture bearer, because that's my upbringing and that is also my expertise, my research. So if there's something that I miss, or if there's something that you would like to add or to share from your own culture, your own background, and your own roots, please don't be shy and share them in the comments down below. Basta bawal ang mga haters. Because we're all here to learn from one another, not to hate and fight one another. So please share what you know, share your knowledge, share what your ancestors or your elders taught you in the comments below. Basta bawal ang mga haters. Kung hindi, ipapanuno ko kayo. So without further ado, let's do the breakdown. First up is the Aswang. So the Aswang is actually an umbrella term for vampire-like creatures and monsters throughout the Philippines. So it's not just one creature or one monster or one type of mythical being, but actually a wide variety of different monsters, different creatures, different beings that are similar to vampires that you can find throughout the many cultures, the different diverse mythologies of the Philippines, and the most popular among them being the Manananggal. And for those who do not know, the Manananggal from the Tagalog culture are the ones whose body sever in half or cuts in half, with the lower body being left behind on the ground, while the upper body, with wings like that of the bat, flies around hunting people to eat. However, as mentioned in my older videos, the Tagalog Manananggal that most of us are familiar with today is actually related to other similar beings across Southeast Asia, like the Mangkukutud in the Kapampangan mythology. But unlike the Manananggal of the Tagalog culture, or the Manananggal that we are familiar with today, wherein the upper body detaches, the lower body stays behind on the ground, in the Kapampangan mythology, the Mangkukutud, actually only the head detaches. Only the head detaches, while the entire body from the neck to your toes are left behind on the ground. And this is actually very similar, or this is actually more similar to the other mythological beings across Southeast Asia, like the Layak in the Balinese traditions, the Penanggalan in Bahasa Melayu, or the Krasu in Thailand and Kasu in Laos. So in all of these, it is only the head that detaches from the rest of the body, unlike the Manananggal that splits in half. In the Mangkukutud, the Layak, the Pinanggalan, the Krasu or the Kasu, it is only the head that detaches, while the organs are actually dangling from the neck. So imagine Manananggal but only the head flying around with the entire organs, the intestines and other things dangling from their necks. And to be honest, that's actually more frightening than a Manananggal, because imagine it's just the head that you see at night. And now that I think about it, actually, in the older Tagalog mythology that a lot of people have forgotten today, we also have what is called the Magtatanggal. The Magtatanggal actually has more similarities to the Mangkukutud of the Kapampangans than the Manananggal that we are familiar with today. So just like the Mangkukutud, just like the Layak, just like the Pinanggalan, just like the Krasu, the Magtatanggal also, it's only the head that detaches. And this is a reminder for all of us, a reminder for everybody that mythology changes. That no matter the culture, mythologies all around the world evolve over time. And this is a reflection of the changes in our realities as a people. So perhaps something happened in the Tagalog culture that the Magtatanggal evolved into the Manananggal. And speaking of changes, the Mangkukutud in the Kapampangan mythology also evolved over time. It evolved through the centuries. Especially during the colonial period. There's a lot of colonial influences that changed the perspective of the Kapampangan people towards the Mangkukutud. So back then, the Mangkukutud was actually not a demon. It was not an evil being or an evil monster out there to eat humans. In fact, it was the opposite. And according to our elders and our culture bearers and our scholars, before the Mangkukutud was demonized by the Spaniards and the European friars, the Mangkukutud was said to be worshipped as the spirit or the goddess of the coconut trees. Actually, the word kutud in Kapampangan means to sever or to cut a living part of the body from the whole body. And this was more of a reflection of the Mangkukutud's sacrifice for the people, rather than a scary, horrifying thing. Again, in the Kapampangan, pre-colonial and indigenous culture, the Mangkukutud was the goddess of the coconuts, not a monster. Someone who was willing to give up her own head, her own many heads, to satisfy those who are hungry and thirsty. Because if you didn't know, every part of the coconut tree is actually very useful. It is used in many aspects of our culture, from food to architecture, from the coconut juice to the coconut meat to the palms and the wood itself. Nothing was wasted. That is why the coconut tree is considered to be the tree of life, because all parts of the entire coconut tree are used to sustain human life. And our ancestors and elders to this day actually considered it to be lucky to have a coconut tree growing in our yards, in our backyards, in our gardens. And actually, we can talk more about this fascinating mythology about the goddess Mangkukutud and other similar folklores and mythologies across Southeast Asia, like the Layak in Bali, the Pinanggalan in Malaysia, the I already said Layak, the Krasu in Thailand or the Kasu in Laos, and other similar beings across Southeast Asia in future videos. Actually, let me know then in the comments below if you want any of these mythological beings to be featured in their own special videos in future videos in the future. And another popular and frightening aswang that is worth mentioning is the Tiktik. And a lot of people actually confuse the Tiktik with the Manananggal. The Tiktik is actually the one with long tongues and flies around or hops around. I don't know how they travel, but the Tiktik are the ones who travels around to hunt and prey on pregnant women. They would land on your roof and poke a hole through your roof and then lower their long-ass tongues and touch your belly button and then sucking up the babies straight from the mother's womb. And the Tiktik is actually not in the Trese universe yet, or at least I haven't seen the Tiktik yet at least not in season 1 of Trese, maybe in the books, but we'll see, maybe in season 2. But yeah, it is worth mentioning. Anyways, so next we have the leaders of the Aswang, the gangs of Aswang in the world of Trese. So there's Ibwa and Shamul. So first, we have Ibwa. Ibwa is actually from the indigenous Tingyan or Itneg mythology of northern Luzon in what is now the province of Abra. And Ibwa, in their appearances, they look like humans, they look like normal humans, but actually deep within, there are evil spirits that eat the corpse or the dead bodies of humans. So the indigenous Itneg people fear Ibwa They fear that Ibwa would quietly steal the body of a dying person. And there are actually many ways to prevent this. One of it is by lighting a candle for 9 straight days or 9 straight nights to guard the grave, to guard the bodies, so that Ibwa would not steal them. So for 9 straight days or 9 straight nights, you have to keep the fire of the candle burning. Because once it dies down, Ibwa would steal the bodies of humans. And I actually would like to also mention the Palenque of the Aswangs, this market of the Aswangs in the Trese universe. It is a very interesting take on the Aswang being the gangsters in the city of Manila, in Metro Manila, as opposed to traditionally being, these creatures that are just lurking in the dark in the rural villages at night. So in Trese, they're out there as the gangs all around Metro Manila. And next is Shamul. And Shamul is actually from the Isneg mythology, from the indigenous Isneg or Isnag people of what is now the province of Apayao in northern Luzon. And Shamul is an evil spirit swallowing humans alive. Shamul would swallow the human whole, without even chewing it. They would just swallow an entire human being while they're still alive. The whole body in one swallowing. Which is actually very interesting because in the Kapampangan culture, we also have a term called samul, which means almost the exact same thing, swallowing an entire thing whole. So if, for example, if I swallow an entire banana or swallow an entire mango with this seed in it, or an entire watermelon, in Kapampangan we call that samul, which again is very similar to the Isneg mythology. So perhaps there's a connection between Shamul and the Kapampangan term samul. There's still a lot to learn. And next we have the floating ball of fire called Santelmo. The term Santelmo is actually the Tagalog or Filipino contraction of the Spanish phrase Fuego de Santelmo, or in Tagalog, Apoy ni Santelmo, which in English literally means the fire of Saint Elmo, and it is called the Saint Elmo's fire in most Western societies. And it was named after Saint Erasmus, also known as Saint Elmo. And he was the patron saint of the sailors. It was named after him kasi these mythical fireballs, the Santelmos, are usually seen near large bodies of water, like the open seas or bigger lakes. And throughout history, it was usually the sailors who encountered these mysterious floating balls of fire. In fact, it was also recorded many times during the Magellan Elcano expedition to circumnavigate the world. And Santelmo actually has a more scientific background and explanation. It's practically a floating plasma, and usually it is seen as a warning of a possible lightning strike. Santelmo or Saint Elmo's fire is actually something that appears in many mythologies all around the world, so not just the Philippines or Spain. And although in the Philippines we adopted the Filipino version of the Spanish name Fuego de Santelmo, Apoy ni Santelmo, it doesn't mean that we actually just copied the same mythology from the Spaniards. Because actually, while in Western societies like Spain, Santelmos are often seen as a sign of good omen or sometimes even seen as something that was holy. In the Philippines, it is actually the opposite. Santelmos are considered to be a bad omen in the different Filipino folklores. But in the world of Trese, Santelmo is an ally. And now let us meet Ibwa. Ibwa is the goddess of death and of the underworld in the indigenous Manobo mythology. The Manobo people, for those who may not know, are among the indigenous Lumads of Mindanao. And Ibwa is believed to be ferrying the souls of the dead from our world to the afterlife, and they travel through boats. But in the world of Trese, it was modernized as the train or the MRT of the underworld. And Ibwa is actually similar to other deities or other diwatas in other cultures in the Philippines, like the goddess Magwayan from the Visayan mythology. And for those who do not know, Magwayan is more like a combination between Hades and Poseidon from the Greek mythology. But honestly for me, she's more fierce and a very powerful goddess. And again, we can talk more about this in future videos. Maybe we can even make a video on the different deities or the different diwatas of death from the different indigenous mythologies of what is now the Philippines. So let me know in the comments below. And lastly, we have someone who is not necessarily a monster or necessarily a mythical being or creature, but someone who is equally terrifying and perhaps even so much more evil. And this is none other than Mayor Santa Maria. I know I said I'm not gonna comment on the plot, but Mayor Santa Maria deserves a mention in this video. He's like the epitome of evil and corrupted Filipino politicians. You know, the embodiment of Apple politicians, especially during election season, which is actually coming up very soon in the Philippines. And also, another thing that is worth mentioning is the burning of the squatters area, you know, to displace the poor Filipinos from their homes. And sadly, this is a common practice, you know, purposefully starting a fire to clear the slums and use it as an excuse for redevelopment. And this happens not just in the Philippines, but also in the US. For example, the International Hotel, the historic I Hotel of San Francisco, back in the 60s, the late 60s and early 70s, where they started fires to justify the evictions of poor Filipinos. It's a sad reality where the poor are always exploited. And this actually brings me to what Alexandra Trese said in episode 1. I'm not sure if I'm gonna say it word by word, but something about halimaw at tao. Ang halimaw at tao ay walang pinagkaiba. Meaning, monsters and humans are not that much different. About how they are both equally capable of evil things. And our ancestors understood this very well. That both humans and demons or monsters are both equally capable to do good or evil. That no body is inherently good or inherently evil since birth. That it's more on the actions we take and how we treat others that defines whether we are evil or whether we are good. It's in the actions we take, not our blood or species. So there you have it, a brief overview and breakdown of the mythologies shown in the first episode of the first season of Trese on Netflix. So stay tuned for the breakdown of episodes 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 in the upcoming videos. And you know, later on, I'll also make a Pinoy historian's review of the entire season 1 of Trese. And you know, this will include spoilers. So stay tuned for that. Abangan nyo ang lahat ng yan. And again, I shared from my perspectives, from my knowledge as a Filipino historian and a Kapampangan and Tagalog culture bearer. So if you want to share anything from your culture, if there's something that I missed or something you want to add, don't forget to comment down below. Don't be shy. Let us know what you think, what you know. You know, share your knowledge to all of us because we're all here to learn from one another. Basta again, bawal ang mga haters at trolls. So don't be shy and let us know more about your cultures in the comments below. You know, you can also share what you think about the first episode if you've already seen it. And of course, before we go, today's shoutout goes to NRK PLTK from the Philippines. Mali, NRK LPTK from the Philippines. Shoutout to I Am the Great from the Visayas, also in the Philippines. Shoutout din kay Alfaizar Ambi from the Sulu Archipelago, also in the Philippines. And shoutout to Michelle in Sandnes from Norway. And of course, special shoutout and special thanks to Bapang Mike Tayag Manaloto Pangilinan, today's foremost expert Kapampangan culture bearer and Kapampangan studies scholar. Dakal pong salamat Bapang Mike ing egan-agan yung gagawan to preserve and to promote our culture, to keep our culture and our traditions alive. Dakal pong salamat. Luwid kayo. And that is it for me today. If you like this video or learned a thing or two, don't forget to like, share this video, comment down below, and please subscribe. And special thanks, special shout out, and thank you to all my patrons. Dakal pong salamat for all your love and support for helping me make more videos like this. And for those who want to help me make more videos like this, show your support and please be my patron or get a copy of any of my books or coloring books or any of the merch link down below. Maraming salamat po. Magsukol terima kasih. Daghang salamat. Dakal pong salamat. See you next time, or in Tagalog, kita-kits, and in Kapampangan, mikitiks!
When the sun sets, take a turn down a dark alley, and you might find yourself as prey. Kidnappers and thieves are the least of your worries. Beware the ones that crave your blood and covet your soul. They can't be bound by handcuffs.